Smoke and mirrors, guys. Welcome to the movie factory.
Ooh, so exciting, isn't it?
Trust me.
Please, we can kill it.
Ferocious, sir. Don't try to put tiger bomb on this jungle tonight.
You're that kind of guy. Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
You want to get nuts? Wakanda forever! Yes! Yes! Fuck you too!
You're gonna see some serious shit.
Welcome back to Smoke and Mirrors. This is Rob, and this is a new episode of Reflections. What I wanted to do for the next 7 weeks is tackle some of my old school favorite action movies. These are movies that are well made, with high budgets, with the best actors. They're pieces of my heart as well. This is a reflection of me. I hope you guys enjoy the next 7 weeks. I'm going to keep it a surprise until we reveal the next episode. So this week we are talking about Bloodsport, the 1988 martial arts epic. It's directed by Newt Arnold, who kind of peaked at this point because I think this was his last feature. We got a script by Sheldon Lettich, Christopher Cosby, and Mel Friedman. It is starring Jean-Claude Van Damme as Frank Dukes, as in Put Up Your Dukes. We got Donald Gibb as Ray Jackson. We got Ken Sue as Victor Lin. Bolo Young as Chong Li. Roy Chiao as Shidoshi Tanaka. Philip Chan as Captain Chen. Shun Yin Lung as Mrs. Tanaka. That's the only thing she's credited as. Leah Ayres as Janice. Forrest Whitaker, a very young Forrest Whitaker, as Rollins, and Norman Burton as Helmer. Let's move into the plot. So, the plot for this 1988 action year revolves around a tournament called the Kumite. And this thing is like the Mortal Kombat before Mortal Kombat. And I think Ed Boon and Tobias actually talked about this being one of the inspirations for Mortal Kombat. So Frank Dukes must fulfill his destiny and go compete in the Kumite to gain honor for his Shidoshi and himself. Shidoshi is like teacher for his type of martial arts. So it's part hero's journey. It's part biographical because it's based on Frank Dukes, the real guy, but it's all heart. And I love this movie because it hits me there. Let's go into Act 1. So, all of the fighters are introduced to us. We see Bolo breaking fucking ice with his shoulders and elbows and kicking it broken. I don't know how much effort they go to train people with ice, but it feels like if you're doing it with ice, it takes a while, but it's finished in like seconds. We get like this blonde stockbroker looking guy jumping through breaking wooden boards. We see Jackson introduced to us. We see this African guy with a monkey style cracking coconuts. We see the sumo wrestler who's like, I'll just throw this big bag of whatever the fuck. And these guys just like can't carry the weight. So they basically just get toppled over. And yeah, we see Jackson just hitting a punching bag. Everyone is skilled except for Jackson, but we'll get to that later on. And then we're introduced to Frank Dukes. So this messenger runs up to him and he's like, Dukes, we know that you're going to the Kumite, but we can't let you go. Dukes is like, all right, cool. You know what? I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to get out of this unitard that I'm wearing. And let me just go freshen up before I see the colonel there. Goes into the showers. The guy's waiting. Anyways, Dukes escapes in the fucking steam. There's only one entry and exit point, and Dukes is out of there. I didn't see any windows in this place either. Why would you want to try capture someone that uses the power of the fucking devil? I don't know. Dukes runs straight to Shidoshi's house, and we find out that this is where, as a youngster, he kind of trained. And how he was introduced to that was he broke in with a couple of friends and they wanted to steal the sword. Dukes couldn't bring himself to steal the sword. He felt drawn to it. There was something there and it just didn't feel right. So anyways, he hangs around, puts the sword back, and we see Tanaka and his son Shingo. Shingo takes Dukes down hard. And Tanaka kind of teaches him a lesson. Cuts the brim of his hat off. And then we kind of we see what's happening, right? Dukes is getting used to train Tanaka's son. Tanaka has a meeting with his father and everything, and find out that martial science is the same as growing wine vineyards, and it's this cool little montage where we kind of see Dukes change his ways, and then he sort of stands up for Shingo, who's getting bullied at school, and learns martial arts as well. He's trained now. Then we find out that Shingo died in the Kumite, competing in this thing. And Dukes is kind of like, well, train me and I can like fight in the Kumite. And then Tanaka's like, you are not Japanese. You are not a Tanaka. Completely fucking like, telling him the reasons why he can't compete as a Tanaka. And he's like, well, I can do it for you because you're my trainer. That's how we get past that. And then we get this badass montage where Van Damme just gets thrown. So the camera moves where it sort of looks at Roy Chiao, and he's basically just looking at the camera, and then all of a sudden Van Damme gets flipped out, like Power Rangers or something like that. And then we see Van Damme progressing. He's getting better. He's learning how to take shots. He's learning how to block them. He's learning how to recover from them. Before he eventually does his test. And that test is he has to serve tea blindfolded. Unbelievable. Mrs. Tanaka's at the table, and Mr. Tanaka even tries to strike Dukes down after he served the tea. A last little test. Dukes grabs that shit. He's quick. Then there's this other thing. I don't know if this was just fucking torture or what, but Dukes is strung up by his legs. He now has to learn how to do the splits. And Tanaka like really stretches the shit out of his legs. But Dukes adapts. He gets stronger. He pulls the poles that are holding him up, pulls them right down and frees himself almost. And he's got this look of like defiance and ferocity and like just pure will looking at Tanaka. Tanaka sees this. He lets him graduate. He passes the Tanaka test. And he's almost like he's in the ceremony where he's kind of knighted. He's in traditional robes and stuff. It's actually really, really nice. All of this kind of plays out over some really awesome music by Paul Herzog, who just kills this shit. We're then jet set over to Hong Kong, where we meet Jackson. So Jackson's entrance is wild because he kind of like, he walks on this bus, he's drinking a fucking beer out in the open. He just looks really, really loudmouth American. So I don't know if that's a stereotype that they were going for, but he's like full biker, Harley Davidson bandana and shit. Puts his legs up and he like tries to chat up this chick with like the biggest dick energy you ever seen. You just see him like, well, you hear him and he's like, hey baby, you ever been with a big man before? How is that the intro line? Man, the chick ignores the shit out of him. So does Dukes. Dukes is like, who the fuck is this guy? Before they actually meet up at the hotel, Jackson's playing on this arcade game from 1984. I forget what the name of it is. And then Dukes kind of walks up and he's interested. He kind of wants to have a go. So Jackson's like, I'll take your money. Well, I'll beat you. Anyways, he pays for the game and everything. And this is kind of like the first date. Because Dukes fucking destroys Jackson. He shows him up like crazy. And yeah, Jackson's like, oh, okay, this guy's got some skills to where Duke's like, I don't know how they play this game because there's no actual like A, B, X, Y buttons or anything like that. It's straight just 2 sticks. That's it. And Dukes ends up like doing like this jump kick, which completely just rocks Jackson, and he wins the fucking game. Remember that shit. He wins with a jump kick. We then meet Victor Lin. So Lin's really cool. He's just out there. He says what's on his mind. So the intro is, Jackson, you look like Jackson. And you must be Frank Dux. No. Dukes. Which is really cool. Like I love this already. Like we're introduced to the characters and we're sort of, they're comfortable already. The scene then moves over in this hotel. The scene then moves over to this guy, kind of looks like he's harassing this blonde chick. She's American as well. And then Dukes kind of goes in there and saves her from being gang raped by Hussein and his boys. It was wild. They didn't actually allude to it, but he's like, you want to come upstairs? And the chick's like, no, I do not. There's no consent there. Then Van Damme, or Frank Dukes, sorry, he's Frank Dukes from now on, slides into the scene and basically just stops them. And he's sort of like, well, if you can, like, you know, keep the coin in your hand, then you can keep the girl, which is wild. And then he says, but if I can grab that coin out of your hand before you close it, then I get the girl. Also wild. So Hussein does it. They look at each other, and then there's a quick snap, and Hussein closes his fist. When he opens it, the coin is gone. Van Damme kind of does like this little thing at the, like, you know, to Hussein, like, check my hand, which is wild and funny. But then opens his hand, and he's got the coin. Van Damme, Frank Dukes has got the coin. So he was quicker than Hussein closing his hands. So then he gets Janice, right? And he ends up taking Hussein's gold. Pretty crazy, but remember that. He also takes Hussein's gold. Dukes then finesses the shit out of Janice. She wants a sort of, she wants a little interview about the Kumite, and he's kind of saying, well, yeah, all right, we'll see how it goes. Anyways, they spend the night together. We meet them in the morning, and Van Damme's kind of like, you know, walking around in just his panty-cut underwear, and he kind of like, you know, shows the camera his ass there. And then like struts around and has a conversation with Janice, but the thing that he says is, look, I can't give you the interview. So he got what he wanted, only to kind of say, well, guess what? I'm not going to give that interview up. So he got the sex for free. Van Damme, I think there's a lot of guys out there that wouldn't be mad if their girl came home with a Van Damme ass in yoga pants. Just saying. We then go through the underworld. So this is one of the only movies to actually film in the walled city of Kowloon before it was actually destroyed. They go through the underworld, basically the underworld of Hong Kong, to get to the Kumite. Before they get there, like, you know, this is one of those things where it's part of your nostalgic DNA, I'm going to say, where the guy's like, okay, USA. And all of a sudden you kind of like, I know that from somewhere. It's Bloodsport. That's where you know it from. So they go through this hallway and then eventually go into like the big arena where they're all going to fight. And Van Damme has to test his might. Again, another Mortal Kombat reference. Where he has to break a brick. But if he trained under to Shidoshi Tanaka, then he would know the Dim-Mak, right? Correct. Van Damme says, hey, pick a brick. And before he's able to break the top brick, one of the conductors from the Black Dragon Society says, "Nah, you got to break the brick right on the fucking bottom. That's how far I want you to dim muck this shit." Then we kind of get introduced to all the fighters around looking at Van Damme. They're waiting to see if he's actually going to be able to dim muck this thing. Van Damme kind of he withdraws into himself, only to explode and push this brick. It fucking just gets annihilated. All the cement and red clay just go flying. And it's a really cool camera angle as well. And then the shit's on. Because then the kumite starts. It's a ceremony, and everything kind of goes down from there. There's some fighting, and everyone kind of shows their first hand. Some cool music. Fight to Survive by Stan Bush plays, who's big in the Transformers world. He does a lot of music for them. We then see Duke's first fight. So Frank goes up against Hussein. Remember Hussein, who was in the hotel trying to sort of get with Janice and coerce her into going up to his hotel room. Hussein has a grudge, because then he says, "Now I show you a trick or two." And then he goes up against Van Damme. Van Damme hits him with some of the quickest strikes, and fucking just Hussein is shook. He lays on the ground. Van Damme was going to finish him, but he doesn't. Hussein just feigns like he's knocked out. Again, Van Damme, or Dukes, has his shirt on. He hasn't even broken a sweat. He goes to walk away like he's won, and Hussein gets up. Dukes rocks him with the biggest elbow ever. So in real life, when they were filming this shot, Van Damme actually knocked this guy out with that elbow. That was a real take, and that was the one that they used in the film. He then gets him with this Hoyo Beck backhand as well, which completely takes him out of the game. That's it for Hassan. We then see that Hussein has lost a tooth. He's lost gold again to Van Damme. So Frank Dukes took his gold at the start, and now he took his gold again. Hussein is never getting that shit back either, because the ring caretaker took that shit, tested it, put it in his mouth and everything. It was disgusting. But yeah, it's that's Act 1. Really exciting. And it just sets the scene for everything that's going to happen. So let's get into Act 2. So Act 2 sees Helmer and Rollins come into the fray. So they're two investigators sent by the army to bring Dukes back. Dukes is too important to the army to let go. They don't want anything to happen to him. They don't want him to get injured or anything, because they've invested a lot of money into him. So they follow his trail. They first go to Tanaka's house. And just before Rollins is about to really get in Miss Tanaka's ass, Helmer stops him. So she's like, "We don't know where Frank is." And Forrest Whitaker, who plays Rollins, goes, "Well, of course you know who he is or where he is." And then Helmer's like, "Thank you, Mrs. Tanaka." And then they go on their way. But then they find Frank in the hotel that Frank's staying at. And a chase occurs. This chase is sort of like a Charlie Chaplin-esque kind of. Frank's kind of he's got them. He knows they're not shit to him. He can outrun them. He can outfight them. He knows what he's doing. All played to the backing of Steal the Night by Michael Bishop, which is the most fire 80s track ever. They're going through bus stops and streets and fruit markets before eventually Frank goes right across the fucking boats on one of the docks. And Rollins and Helmer can't keep up. they end up like falling in the water because they can't balance on the boats. And Frank Dukes gets away. He kind of like just salutes them and he's like, I'm out of here, fellas. And then the film takes us right back to the Kumite. So we see Chong Li, we see Jackson, we see Dukes all kicking ass. We see Paco do his thing, pardon me, and he's just taking people out. And then we see Chong Li versus Pereira. And this fight elicited the biggest reaction from my family. One, because it's like, I think it's one of the first instances of like gore in a martial arts movie that we all watched together. I don't know. But Chong Li does this finishing move where he fucking kicks his leg, his shin, and the shin bone just shoots the fuck out. I mean, my mom was like, shit, when she used to watch that. And it's just funny, when that scene comes on, all you hear is, that's the only reaction. Then we get Frank Dukes versus sumo wrestler. And this sumo wrestler is bad because he does like this crush move and basically just takes people out like crazy. So he did it on the African monkey fighter, and now he's doing it on Frank Dukes. Frank is able to then dim muck him, and like it looks like he just explodes his guts because this guy doesn't know where he is. He recovers, comes after him, and Johnny Cage is born because Frank Dukes does the splits and nut punch, completely taking this guy out. It's weird that like destroying his vital organs in his abdomen didn't take him out, but a punch to the groin completely disabled this guy. The fight is done. Then Chong Li has to fight Ray Jackson. And Jackson starts off strong. For some reason, like, I don't know why Jackson was even invited into the Kumite. All he has is brute strength and his reach. He destroys one guy by just like grabbing his face and just like, caving it in. And then when he tries it on Chong Li's like, all right, cool. Chong Li then goes on to completely rock this tall motherfucker and head stomps him. He head stomps him so hard that his Harley Davidson bandana comes off, which Chong Li takes. Chong Li takes that that bandana, and Dukes is full of rage. He can't, he can't function after that. We then we meet up with Jackson again and Dukes as they're consoling each other basically in the hospital. Like, I can't move and shit like that. Jackson's completely fucked up. And Dukes goes, I'm going to get revenge for you, Jackson. Then Janice gets cut because she hasn't gotten an emotional response all movie. Like, this movie is so much not about Janice that it's not funny. And she kind of like really gets the shits with Dukes. And he's like, I don't want you to end up like Jackson or worse, but I'm not going to stand around and watch it. To which Lynn kind of comes in and he's just like, forget about the girl. And so Dukes forgets about the girl. Janice then turns completely snitch and goes to the Hong Kong police, outing Dukes as like, this is where it's going to be. This is where you can find him. Because tomorrow is like some of the last matches and I don't want him to get hurt. Intentions are well, but like, you're fucking up the man's destiny here. Then we get a montage of Dukes alone, on my own alone, which ends with this beautiful panning vista shot of the Hong Kong city and Dukes doing the splits on this concrete slab basically that he could just fall off the edge and die, and who Action Bronson actually took for cover art for one of his albums while the song's playing. So it's him sort of going through I can stay in my feelings or I can use it to motivate me and sort of just level up. And level up is what he does. And that's Act 2. Act 3. So Dukes is ready. He goes through the underworld entrance to the Kumite that he usually does and finds the Chinese police forces there. So Dukes, in like this crazy montage, takes out like 3 or 4 guys. This is the army, the American army's most highly trained personnel, and you send 4 guys after him. There's one guy that he just kicks in the door and then closes the door with his foot. But yeah, he dismantles them all before meeting up with Helmer and Rollins and Inspector Chen. And basically, like, he deflects the electrode gun thing, the tasers. He deflects that onto other guys, and like he's sort of like, I'll just meet you tomorrow. And they let him. They have no other firepower or leverage over Dukes except for that. We then see like one of the promoters in the Kumite do his classic line, no such thing as too late, when he stuffs like, money into one of the coordinator's shirts, and then Duke shows up and he just takes that shit right back. And then he hypes Dukes up after that. He's like, Dukes is my man. We're then treated to Paco versus Dukes, which is one of the most firefights, I think, in the movie. Because it's Dukes sort of fighting Paco, realizing, hey, he's got a very different style to me, and then just going, you know what? This guy might have a different style than me, but he's not tougher than me. And lets Paco kick the shit out of his ribs before he beats him at his own game. It's disrespect at the highest level. And he eventually beats Paco by he does 2 kicks when Paco only does 1, and just completely roundhouses him down before we get Chong Li versus Chuan Ip Meng, which is like the guy with I think he's got a black sash and like these silk yellow fighting trunks. And then Chong Li kills this guy in the ring. And these are the legends that sort of come up through the stories, like, oh, Chong Li is a bad motherfucker. He killed that guy. They're like, yeah, he did. So he just basically holds this guy's head and just punches him in the face. That's the death move. I don't know if he just punches so hard that the guy's like, I don't know, his brain just stops functioning and he stops breathing or whatever. Or they don't show the guy dying. But the Kokurukai don't like that shit. The Black Dragon stand up, turn their backs on him. Chong Li hits him with the biggest "get the fuck out of here" wave, before looking at Dukes and saying, "You are next." And the stage is kind of set for this big showdown. The announcers hit that "get ready for the final match." And Chong Li doesn't he doesn't waste time. He intimidates the shit out of Dukes. Lifts up his knee, they both take it down, shirts off, pants off, and it's just their fighting shorts on. Whereas I think Dukes is wearing these bike shorts with a red sash. Again, Johnny Cage wore the same shit in the first Mortal Kombat. And you see that Chong Li's tied that Harley Davidson bandana on his leg, the ultimate taunt. Chong Li lifts up his leg and he's like, "Now I break you like I break your friend," which would have scared the shit out of anyone. But Duke stands firm. He holds his own. And they get into it. There's some nice fighting. And very early on, I found that Duke's he had him. It took Chong Li a cheat move of reaching into his pants, and he's he's got his secret weapon, which is this pill that he rubs together. It dissolves, and he throws the ash or the debris into Dukes' eyes. Dukes is blind. He's swinging wildly, and Chong Li's just kind of taking advantage of this and kicking his ass. You know what I mean? And then there's a moment there where Duke's full of rage just screams like crazy, and you've all seen it because he's like, ah. But through that rage, he's able to just go inward and just bring out these flashbacks of like him training, everything he's worked for, the pain he's gone through. But most importantly, he he remembers that time that, hey, I was trained to fight blind. I don't need my eyes for this shit. And he remembers, and then there's calm on his face. And this is dangerous, Dukes. This is why Dukes is the man. Because Chong Li throws a fucking kick, and Dukes catches that shit and sends him back. But I found that Chong Li gave this guy just way too much time to recover. Why would you amp the crowd up when you can just finish this guy off, take the medal, and get the fuck out of there? Because he even had time to have a flashback. And that's a lot of time. That was a good 30, 40 seconds, where in the UFC, that's a lifetime. Dukes kind of sets Chong Li off, and then he rocks him with a series of split kicks that eventually bring him down. This is a big man. But these kicks, they're very familiar, aren't they? Would you say that when Dukes defeated Jackson in that game at the start, he won with a jump kick? The plot thickens. So then after this, right? Dukes has won. Chong Li just gets the fuck out of there because he doesn't want to hang around. Dukes gets honored. He's he gets presented with a sword, and now he's got a sword, like Ishidoshi has a sword. And then Dukes goes to the hospital and presents Jackson with the bandana. And then Jackson finds out that Frank made Chong Li say Mate. And when when they say Mate, it's I'm tapping out, I'm giving up. It's a submissive move. This, I think, makes Jackson rethink what his idea of big dick energy is. Because Frank Dukes, the whole time, plays it low. He's the gentleman. He's the quiet guy. He's very sort of reserved. No dancing from him in this one. But still ends up ahead. Whereas Jackson was a loudmouth from the start and got midway through the fights. But yeah, Jackson's anytime, anywhere, I'll be there after getting that bandana. Which makes me think that this movie was not a love story at all. It wasn't about Dukes and Janice. It was Jackson and Dukes the whole fucking time. Janice basically gets a salute at the end. So Helmer and Rollins, the two guys that have been chasing Frank Dukes all across Hong Kong, they rock up at this plane and they're like, he's late, he's not coming, he did it again. Dukes comes out of that plane and he's like, guys, are you going to come or what? And then they're like, okay, cool. So they go in and then Janice shows up and she's like, hey, all the best. But she doesn't say anything. They just look at each other and eventually hit each other with the respect. Because I think that Dukes and Janice were basically the same person, two sides of the coin. Dukes needed some comfort and Janice wanted to end for the Kumite, so they used each other. So it doesn't matter if there wasn't a love story because game recognizes game. So my final thoughts on the movie. I mean, the movie wasn't going to win any woke awards, but why did the African guy have to have the monkey style and crack coconuts? I thought that was a bit on the nose for just taking it a bit too far. In the movie also, when Duke snatches the coin from Hussein, in the next scene is Hussein opening his hand and there's a coin in there, which is weird because Duke's then goes, hey, I've got the coin. So I don't know if there was just an editing issue and they didn't do the reveal shot and shoot that. But yeah, that's in there as well. When they initially go through the underworld in Kowloon City, Lin goes from hey, I've got a beard to now I'm clean shaven to now have got a beard again when they hit the kumite. So, like, there's some continuity issues there for sure. In the last fight, Duke's hair gets like, it's sweaty, then it's dry, then it's sweaty, then it's dry again. So it's almost like they shot on 2 different days and just forgot, hey, the hair and makeup people didn't do their thing yet. And then the weirdest thing. So the movie ends with some facts about the real Frank Dukes, like how many fights that he had, and fastest knockout, fastest punch, and like, fastest knockout with a kick, and all sorts of stuff. But later on, we actually found that Frank Dukes made all this shit up, which is wild. There's apparently not one instance of this being real. So Frank Dukes was a big old faker. I mean, he was able to set up Duke's Ryu. But apparently even that's fake. So he just he cooked up the story to get into Hollywood, to get the fame, and then he bounced. It's like, okay, I've gotten my 15 minutes and I'm out of here. Which is wild, because they were touting this as like, a true story. The first American, ninjutsu champion. And one thing that I'm glad never happened, they were set to remake this with Philip Noyce, who directed Salt. And it was going to be about a soldier who has PTSD from Afghanistan, goes to Brazil, where he finds that there's a kumite happening, and then he joins, and sort of the whole movie kind of plays out from there. I'm glad the remake never happened. Like, this movie should never be touched. They made, I think, 2 sequels. I think they made up to Bloodsport 3 with Daniel Bernhardt, who's great and everything, but there's no topping Van Damme. Pause. So the budget that Bloodsport had was $1.1 million, which is crazy. Like, it's not an overly flashy film, but they did a lot with that. They were able to stretch it and kind of get a few locations in. They shot on location in Hong Kong, which really sold, I think, the feel of the movie. The worldwide gross, though, they made 11.8 mil. That's big numbers for like what we consider an indie film. That's its budget back almost 11 times or 10 times over. They're doing big things with this. So I got a little crazy and I decided, well, let's reintroduce that cast as if they came out at a theater show and they kind of bowed one last time before we got them, to close the curtains. So we got Donald Gibb as Big Dick Energy. Got Ken Sue as the Bearded Dragon. Bolo Jung as Pex on Fleek. We got Roy Chiao as Lao Chi Lives. We got Philip Chan as the Food Snob Friend. We got Shun Yin Lung as You Wouldn't Hit a Blind Guy, Would You? We got Leia Ayres as the Hustler. We got Forrest Whitaker as Sparks. We got Norman Burton as One Hitter Spitter. And we got Jean-Claude Van Damme as Johnny Rage. Guys, thank you so much for hanging with me for this review. I'll be going through another 6 in the next couple of weeks. And I'm hoping to reveal that next movie next Sunday. So be there for that, because I think it's a pretty well-known movie. I'm pretty sure everyone's seen this movie, but again, it's not the one that's going to win any awards, but it's definitely won a place in my heart. I shall see you next week. Take care of yourselves and love movies.